Every marriage has 3 rings. The engagement ring, the wedding ring, and the bicker ring. We're here to settle the fights that don't matter and have no winner. It's the 3 Rings Podcast with another new argument.
Welcome to another edition of the 3 Rings Podcast. My name is Phil. Over there. Hi.
Hi, I'm Lauren.
Yep. We're married.
We are married.
I'm
very happy about that.
Same, right?
That was a good choice.
It really was. I'm really happy about it.
Getting Leia, our dog, was probably the 2 best decisions we've made.
I would say so.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
It has been fun.
And we're still together no matter how much people are trying to separate us.
Drive a wedge in our...
I know. We're doing this, and I thought for sure there was going to be something that was just going to stick, and it's like, ooh.
Your buddy Johnny Popko commented and said that if we need a divorce lawyer, he knows a good one.
I mean, that's good.
Which I don't even want to know why he has a good divorce lawyer on hand. Like, his wife is fantastic.
I'm not 100% sure. He might have to explain that one.
Yeah. Johnny, we need answers.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. But, no matter how much everybody is trying to destroy this perfect couple, here we stay.
I've been told that we are goals.
Really?
Yeah.
Nobody has ever said that I am goals for anything.
Well,
ever.
not me individually, us together. We are better as a unit. Stronger as a unit.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, though, that at no point has anyone ever looked at me for anything and said, goals.
That's not even true. But anyways, if you want to follow us online and if you have something to say, if you want to tell PK that he's goals,
please.
Then please follow us. Hashtag goals. Please follow us at 3 Rings Pod. That's THREE. What are we talking about this week, hon?
This week we're talking about one of my favorite things in the world to talk about, which is why this is going to get heavy. This is going to get very heated. Like, I'm going to get fired up on this.
Yeah.
Because
and I don't really feel like I stand a fighting chance.
You do. Some people have diehard opinions about this, and this week we're going to talk about the viewing order, not necessarily the rank of best to worst, but the viewing order of the Star Wars movies.
And let's just get this out of the way, because I know you're dying to tell people, but what is your ranking?
Let me preface with this. When we're talking about the viewing order of these, we're talking about the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
6 movies in total.
6 in total. We're not going to talk about the new trilogy that came out. We're not going to talk about Rogue One or Solo.
Although if you want to talk about Adam Driver, we can do that.
Oh, all right.
Anyways, the 6 original.
We're going to talk about the 6 original ones because it would take way too long to do all of them. So
yes.
We're going to do the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
And, I mean, we don't want to talk about the latest 3 because what if people still haven't seen the last one? Like, what if they're waiting for people? Like, what if they're not theater people, they're like watch it at home people?
Yeah.
We're trying to be respectful.
Yeah, I'm doing my best at least.
But your ranking.
My ranking as far as like the ones
your favorites.
Like my favorites. So this is not part of what we're debating. This is just talking about Star Wars. If I'm ranking the movies, 5 Empire Strikes Back, 3 Revenge of the Sith, 4 New Hope, 6 Return of the Jedi, 1 Phantom Menace, and then 2 Attack of the Clones is my order.
Okay, that's a very respectable order.
It's the right order. But
I'm not even going to try and do my order because I can't ever keep track of the movies, like names versus what happens in them. I'm really bad at that.
Yeah, so that's
I could talk about my favorite characters.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine and dandy, but I think that kind of leads into this whole debate as well.
Yeah, I want to preface this by saying that Phil has been like a diehard fan for
ever.
Since exiting the womb almost. He's like been a diehard fan. You come from a long line of diehard fans. Everybody in your family knows way more than I could ever try and keep up with. Yeah. I've been like indoctrinated due to marriage.
You've done great with keeping up and also developing more interest as well, though, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy thing to get interested in. It's got something for everybody. Like, if you're a love story person, it's got love stories. If you're like a politics person, it's got politics. All
of that. Shit. I want to watch people get killed by lightsabers. But so we're discussing the
viewing order,
not necessarily the rank.
And I mean, there are generally two schools of thought, right? So it's
yes. So yeah, I'm going with the release order, which would be starting with Episode 4 with New Hope, then with Empire, then with Return of the Jedi. The three
doing the
originals,
Luke, Leia, Han series.
So you do that trilogy, and then you watch the prequel trilogy after that with 1, 2, 3.
And I want story order.
Okay.
So I want the Amidala, Anakin, Obi-Wan ones first, and then Leia, Luke, and Han.
Okay.
So
those are, at least in my experience, the two ways that most
what
people
other way
will
would
go
you
after.
watch them?
In rank order. Like, whichever, like, how you rank them.
Oh, but that would be so confusing.
I mean, if you've seen them 100 times, I mean, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
You just want to watch the ones that you enjoy, I guess. But, so, my 3 main points for why you should watch it in release order as opposed to story order, it gives you the true fan perspective, for starters. This is point number 1. Mm-hmm. Point number 2, it tells the original stories the way that they were like meant to be told without tinkering with it as time has gone on.
Okay.
So you get the original stories with the full effect of the various plot twists in the movies. So some of that gets lost if you don't watch it in release order. Also, my third point, the story and character evolution makes more sense if you watch it in release order.
See, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, we'll get to that. But
I don't agree with that at all.
Okay, well, that's why we're here, so let's hear your 3 points then.
Okay, so my 3 points are, what is a true fan anyways? Like, what does that mean?
Oh. All right.
Second,
Jesus.
Since it gives you a better sense of the politics and the chronology that's at play in the stories. Like, they tie together more if you watch them in story order. And my third point is that you really could better appreciate Vader's rise, fall, and redemption if you watch them in the story order.
Oh, we're going to discuss that. We're definitely going to discuss that.
I have a feeling that, like, this is going to be, like, full of hot takes, and, like, I'm really not prepared for the Star Wars, like, heads, like, to come for me. But you know what? We're going to do our best. I'm going to try and hold my own. I watched the movies maybe one time before we got married. Mm-hmm. And then have watched them multiple times since.
Yes.
But as someone who came to Star Wars kind of late in the game, I think that story order is the way to go.
All right.
Let's go for your first point.
All right. Well, if you want the true fan perspective, then you should watch them in release order, because everybody that grew up watching the original Star Wars, that's the story that you have.
So my question for you is, did George Lucas, did he intend for there to be prequels when he made the original 3, or did that come to him later?
That came later.
Okay.
And
so you can't really say that watching them in chronological order is even really the order that George Lucas intended them to be intended them to be watched.
Yes and no.
If you were to ask George Lucas how to watch the movies, what would he say?
I don't know.
He's never come out and said that?
He might have. I don't know the answer to it, though.
I'm going to Google that later.
You can, but here's my thing. If you want the perspective of somebody who's a Star Wars fan, like, let's say, like, I'm positioning this as somebody who
grew up watching them.
Yeah, and also speaking to someone, just a vague someone who has never watched Star Wars. And it's wild that there are a lot of people that never have watched the movies.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Like, part of me gets be like, oh, I've never seen this movie or this movie, but like when it's such a big part of pop culture, I don't really understand it. I've watched a lot of bad movies because they were part of pop culture.
Although I saw your jaw drop to the floor the time that I said I hadn't seen all the Bond movies. And I feel like those are a big part of pop culture too.
But James Bond, and you've at least seen a Bond movie.
Am always baffled by the people when we introduce our dog don't know that her name is when they look at her name and they call her Leia, or they've never heard of Princess Leia before. I am truly astounded.
Yeah, it's
because that's something
insane.
You would just gather from being in the world.
You would think, but again, going back to the fan perspective, if you're telling somebody look, this is how most people experience the movies. The first time you get Luke as the hero, as the farm boy who came from nothing, who and you have Vader, who is easily one of the greatest villains of all time.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You build with that story, and you grow with those characters, and you see all of that happen, and then you can go back to the prequel trilogy after that. And that in itself is another experience where you see the characters that you loved from the originals, and you see more of that backstory and more of how all of this came to be. And you get more of the perspective of what is this? Or how did this happen? Or
I have a response to this, but I can't give it to you now. I have to wait until we get to my points, because I don't necessarily agree with that. But continue on. What's your second point?
So with my second point, it is the original stories, and if you watch them from episode 1 through episode 6, you lose a lot of the feeling that came with the original movies. So when the original Star Wars trilogy was made with just Star Wars before it was even called New Hope, the rest of the story still existed. And
so he had everything mapped out.
Everything was there, and he shelved it because he didn't have enough time to put all of that into one movie. It would be too long, or he'd have to take out too much.
Yeah, okay.
So the whole story was there. And that's the story that needs to come across. So when you're watching the original movies, that in itself is just one long story, idea that came from George Lucas.
You're saying that the reveal that Darth Vader is Luke's father would not have as much impact if you watch them in story order.
Exactly, because you see all of that happen in the prequels.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I'll concede that point.
And again, one of the biggest pop culture moments of all time.
If you didn't know
if
you did not know that Darth Vader is Luke's dad, then what are you doing here?
I don't need to preface any of these with
as spoiler. This is
not at all.
If you don't know that Darth Vader is Luke's dad, then you are listening to the wrong podcast, my dude.
Yeah, when it comes to the prequel trilogies, episode 3, the last of the prequel trilogies, came out in 2005. It's been almost 15 fucking years. If I'm not prefacing anything with spoiler alert.
Phil's major point with all of this, all 3 points are essentially in summation, get on my level. That's Phil's 3 points.
I mean, pretty much.
Okay, let's go to point number 3. I'll give you that one. I would agree that moment of him being the dad is not as
all the plot
good.
Twists that come with it. Yeah. You don't get that full effect.
But at
and
the same point, on the same token, if everybody essentially goes into Star Wars knowing that Darth Vader is Luke's father, then is there really that gasp moment? You know what I mean?
I mean, to some people, yeah. I still get chills in that scene every time. I know it's coming.
A really good scene.
It's fantastic. And watching it that way, it
but if you already
has a
know,
different
then
cinematic experience.
Okay, anyways, okay.
Yeah.
I will give you that point.
So leads into point 3 with story and character evolution making a little bit more sense. So as you watch the movies, you get to grow with the characters, obviously. You see how their personalities change a bit throughout the movies and how they fall into the role that they're supposed to fall into. So some of that like luster behind the character kind of gets lost with some of the, I don't like, not like the major characters necessarily, but
yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I feel like this point
the
kind
story
of
of like
more towards,
well, the story of Obi-Wan in the original trilogy. He's the old man, the sensei, the master, the you know, the wise man. Like,
yeah,
he's the leader behind all of that.
Right.
And when you watch the prequels, like, yes, he still has some of that, but you see that and it's like, okay, well, like you just assume that you're supposed to like just be like, all right, well, this is fine. Like, parts of his character get lost if you don't watch it the right way. Same with Yoda. Like, you see Yoda in the prequel trilogies and how he's so calm and confident and serious and all of that, and then you see him in Empire and it's
there was like a
what?
like he like lost his mind while he was like out in the wilderness or something. Yeah.
So,
okay, no, that's I'll concede that point too.
So you're supposed to grow with the characters
kind of
and
have
still
that
get
feeling with Yoda. When you watch the original 3 and then go back and watch the prequels, is like, what the hell happened to him while he was out there? Like, homeboy literally lost his mind.
That's the point, though. Like, that's some of the feeling that you're supposed to get when you go back to the prequels and you see some of that. You know what's happening, and they know that you know what's happening. So that's the way that the stories are kind of being told.
All right.
So
those are good points.
So everything that's supposed to be reflected back to the viewer, the original trilogy tells the story.
When you say that they made the prequels with keeping in mind that people knew what was going to happen in the next 3 movies, that makes a lot of sense to me. That they specifically wrote those prequels for people who had seen the original 3.
And the thing with the original 3 was, the reason the prequels were made was because George Lucas felt that it was lost that Vader and Anakin, like,
he was supposed to be redemption.
There was supposed to be that level of redemption.
Whereas like people were more just like, oh, good, he's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted to instill like yes, like Luke is the hero, but also like his father is still a hero as well. Like he's
like, did you ever really know who he was? Yeah, that kind of
all of that. And so they made the prequels to better tell the story of Anakin as opposed to
Anakin
Luke
was
Skywalker.
Truly
is unbearable.
Oh
in the prequels.
My gosh,
Two
solid movies.
They're such trash.
He's the worst character.
He fucking sucks. But those are my main 3 points for why you should watch them in release order. It's because you get the full perspective of an original fan. You get the full effect of the story, the plot twists, and the character evolution makes more sense when you know like who they were.
Okay.
Or who they are and then who they were.
So I don't think that I'm going to win this week. But I think that my points are still good. I think I still have some very good points.
Okay.
So as someone who didn't grow up during the original releases and was very young during the follow-ups and wasn't born into a family of like Star Wars stans, who is to say what a true fan perspective even is? Like, am I a true fan? What does that mean? I need you to define true fan perspective.
I guess true fan isn't necessarily the best wording. I guess more of a like original
purist?
Fan or like a purist, I guess.
Okay.
Without sounding too like uppity. But as somebody who's not like a bandwagoner or somebody who's like, okay, like I guess I'll just concede and watch them, you know?
Yeah.
Like somebody who's actually like, be like, I'm interested in this, or be like, I remember watching this with my parents.
Into that.
Like something like I know, like I want to pass down Star Wars like to our future kids. Like that is something that is important to me.
Okay.
So true fan, maybe not the best wording.
Purist, more accurate.
Yeah.
Because I would consider myself a true fan.
Yeah. You've seen them all.
I know more than the average person, slightly more, not a ton, but more than a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think that my perspective is still valid unless we're going from the purist perspective, which I don't have the purist perspective.
Whatever.
So if you're watching them for the first time, I really think that story order gives you a better sense of the politics in the movies and the driving forces behind the characters' decisions. Because, like, it took me a bit to grasp, like, what was going on behind the scenes. Like, I did not fully understand, like, the gravity of Jar Jar's decision in the prequels. Like, I mean, he's a trash character, but, like... Yeah,
he sucks.
I did not... Or, like, the fact that everything that... It's Palpatine, right? Like, that Palpatine did was technically legal. Like, that's a huge... Like, that's a really neat plot point. And I did not get that until we watched them in story order.
Well, had you watched them in release order, would that not have come across still? Would you not have understood it?
Not as clearly, no. Not nearly as clearly. I feel like a lot clicked into place for me when we watched them in story order. Because I'm like, oh, like, I kind of see how, you know, one thing led to the other, and, like, how Vader rose to power, and I think that, and that's a really big, the politics of what's going on is a huge part of the movies.
I mean, the prequel trilogies is mainly political.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at all of it, it's all very political, but also the original trilogy is also somewhat political in the fact that it's an empire.
Yeah.
And there is still an emphasis on that there are systems that aren't part of the empire, they aren't part of the rebellion. It's all kind of
and like the whys of that are much more clearly. The Senate still exists.
Mm-hmm. Like, you still have senators in the original trilogy. Like, Princess Leia was a senator. Right.
Or, like, going back and watching, like, Clone Wars, like, that...
So you're getting out of the argument.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to stick to just these ones.
But, like, you get a better sense of the chronology, and it jumps around less. It's more simple. Like, I feel like the story is, like, easier to understand if you watch them in story order.
To a certain degree, yeah.
Okay.
Like, with viewing it that way, yes, you see it all happen, but... you don't get the same, like, aha moments that you would get from watching in release order. But continue.
Okay, so then my third point is, like, you can better appreciate Vader's rise, his fall, his redemption. Because you watch him, and in the first movie, you, like, love him as a little kid. Like, he's so tenacious, and he does the whole, like, racing thing.
No, fuck him as a kid. He sucked as a kid.
Even, like, the little kid?
Second worst acting choice of all time.
That little kid, you didn't like him?
Sucked. He was awful. That was the only thing he ever started.
He's a child. Like, he's not supposed to be, like, a Oscar-nominated actor.
You could have got anybody else. You could, like, what's his fucking face? Haley Joel Osment. He could have done a better job, even though didn't really like him.
I mean, I feel like
the kid who played Anakin was awful.
I thought he was cute.
And then
but anyways,
Christensen was even worse.
You hate him as a young teen and young adult. Like, you don't like him at all while he's, like, doing that whole deal. And then you kind of hate the warlord that he becomes. But then at the very end, like, you find out that there's, like, so much more to him than what you realized. And I don't think you would fully appreciate that without that arc. Like, seeing that arc in his character, like... the motivations behind why he did what he did, and he becomes like a more sympathetic character if you watch it in story order.
Yeah, and I know that's part of the reason why they wanted to make the prequels, is so that you could get that larger character arc. But again, you can still get it if you watch it.
I also think it makes you appreciate, like, Luke's story more. Like, the fact that he forgives him in the end is, like, the sign of a true hero. I feel like that really, like, the fact that you watch this all happen and you're like,
you don't even need the prequels to get that, though. It emphasizes it a bit more, and it gives it a little more bang at the end because you've seen everything that's happened, but you don't need it at all.
I think it's helpful. Like, I think it is helpful.
It's helpful and it's powerful, but you still get the same feeling. But
I think in summation, there's no wrong way to watch it as long as you do.
As long as you've seen them.
As long as you watch them.
That's really all I care about. And here's my thing. I don't have a problem with anybody that wants to watch it in story order. We recently just did that. And it is a good way to help the story make sense from a whole, because you can connect the dots a lot easier.
And when he says that we watch them in story order, we did like including the standalones.
Yeah. Like all of it.
Yeah. And it was a really, really fun way to watch it. I think I've never enjoyed them more than when we did that.
I do like watching them in story order. I do like that. But I think if you want the full experience, you watch them in the release order like most everybody else did. Because then I feel like you appreciate it a little bit more.
I have a feeling that people are going to agree with you more, but I'm going to tell everybody to go to @3RingsPod wherever you're on social media and tell us who you agree with, because I think, again, I'm not the real Star Wars person in this relationship. I'm like cuspy.
Yeah.
You're definitely far more into it than I am, but I think I held my own. I'm pretty proud of myself.
I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt
you are.
right now.
But I mean, on any given day, that's not there. Like, you could bet on something and he's wearing a Star Wars shirt.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah, but anyways, like, I think that I'm pretty proud of myself. I think I held my own, all things considered.
You made some good points. And
thank you.
And I will not disagree that.
Thank you. So tell us what you think. Go to @3RingsPod, that's THREE, and let us know.
And I'm not here to argue about the best Star Wars movie. We're asking about viewing order.
But you know what we are here to argue about? Using the snooze alarm, which is our topic for next week. And I am not feeling confident.
I'm going to fuck you up next week. I am so prepared for next week.
I'm really not. So join us next week.
Funny.
Join us next week, see what goes on, and have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening.